Good evening, Alex. How are you doing? Welcome to Wolfi's Talks. Thank you so much. We're very, very happy to have you on our show. I think Fizik is really one of the brands we really like. It's a cool brand, and we like all the Italian touch to this. I ask my guests always, the first question is, I know you're an athlete, you're a triathlete. The last minute before the race starts, what are you doing?
Well, it depends on the race. It's actually a triathlon. I actually pray that I will get out of the water as soon as possible because I'm not a good swimmer. So yeah, that's something that every triathlete has his weakness. So mine is swimming, and so I just hope to get started on the cycling segment of the race, and then feel the flow towards the finishing line.
Very good, very good. For Fizik, can you tell us a bit more about the company Fizik? Obviously, you're working with all the products which are contact points. You do saddles, you do shoes, you do bar tape. And can you tell us a bit more when the company was founded and all the story all about it, please?
Yeah, Fizik was founded in 1996. It's actually part of the Stella Royal Group, which is founded in the 50s. So Stella Royal was, one of the most important brand in saddle manufacturing. And in the 90s, the ownership decided to have a more performance line, more performance brand inside the company, and that's why Fizik was founded. So as you said, we make saddles for sure, being a part of the saddle manufacturing group. We make bar tapes, we make shoes, especially shoes. So in the past years, we focused a lot on the technology, on the innovation, also regarding shoes. All the touching points that we have on the bicycle. So for Fizik, it's important that we think that the most important goal for the brand is what we call the beauty of challenge. I mean, being you a professional, an amateur, you have your own challenge. The challenges of our brand is to provide consumers, the cyclists, something related to performance for sure. We are going to provide them with the most innovative technology out there, but yes, also we want to provide a beautiful product. So we are very focused on design, on how we create the aesthetic of the shoe, the aesthetic of the saddle. So everything should be integrated in what we call the beauty of challenge.
Very good. We prepared a little video clip and you send us this, and we just want to show everyone what is Fizik all about. And it's a little bit a longer clip, but we really felt like it was really worth it to show it, to give people an idea about the company and so on. So I would ask Will, who is our graphic designer, to play the clip, please.
If you can create something that is recognizable with a few lines, you've got something with a strong potential.
Many companies, they start thinking about the product right away. They start thinking about technology right away. We start by looking at, people that cycle, why they cycle, what's the type of experience they're seeking, and that leads us to think about products that kind of go in that direction.
How can we do a better product? How can we do a more comfortable product? How can we do a more lighter product? But the real question is, how can we bring the future into today's products?
In a traditional linear process, usually the prototypes are done toward the end of a process to express manufacturability. Instead, here the prototypes are a way of learning a little bit more and test our solutions.
You spend less time working on a clean sheet of paper than you used to do before. There's many more tools you have at hand now, which means you need to be flexible as a designer. You need to learn new ways of working all the time.
So the fact that we are doing so many iterations of product prototypes, that means we rely so much on external feedback.
For a project like this, you have input from many different people. You have input from medical professionals, you have input from professional bicycle riders, you have the commercial side coming in with the market trends. Then you have the engineers with their technical and feasibility input, and it takes a long time just to understand what all these people talk about, because they talk in very different ways and you have to listen to them in different ways. Your job as a designer is to try to compile that into a shape.
Collaboration is everything.
Every feedback I get from the riders or the mechanics is very important to improve the products.
Technologies are not really the key. They become just a mean to get where we want to be.
You're not going to listen to some pressure map on its own. How do you feel about how that saddle works? Because that's the thing I want to know.
The goal of our community is, I would say, to make better product, but it's more than product. It's about delivering the right experience, an experience that cyclists can appreciate.
The spirit behind this project is trying to bring everything and everyone together to the main goal that is making cyclist life better.
The way we see it here is more a philosophy towards product development. And that philosophy becomes a mindset, which basically is a creative problem solving.
We are all cyclists. We are different kind of cyclists, and we brought all our experience in one table, and from there we start to innovate.
Wow, it's such a cool clip. I really like to watch it, and I think it really shows the passion all of you have in the company to make really one of the best saddles. I love it how they make the saddle and make the prototype, and it's a lot of handwork. I saw the last couple of days, I saw a video from Cedric Garcia about how he made a saddle in your company, and he was amazed about how much handwork it is. But I have a lot of respect for people who can produce something with the leather, with the stitching, with the foam, and all these different things. So can you tell us a bit more how the saddle started, and what's maybe the best-selling saddle in your range, and how much time does it take to develop a new product?
Well, it takes a lot of time, actually. When I joined the company about 2 years ago, coming from the bike industry anyway, I was actually surprised on the amount of time that our company spent on developing product like the saddle. Usually it takes almost a couple of years from all the research that we make before starting actually giving the work to the engineers and making all the stuff that they are able to do. It's interesting because, as the video explained very well, before starting the project, we have interdisciplinary group where we have bike fitters, we have engineers, we have pro cyclists, we have doctors, physio, bike fitters, and actually all the people working in the industry and towards the cyclists, all coming together in the same room, talking about what we should do to make cyclists' life better. And that's the starting point of everything, because then we have the designer working with us together, then the engineers, and for sure then we have all the iteration that we can have for making a saddle. But recently we also did a different kind of saddle, the 3D saddle, what we call the adaptive saddle. That's a completely different project because it's part of the concepts. I would say program that we have in Fizik, so this cross-disciplinary group of work. But with that technology, actually, we might have less handmade parts in terms of what we do for the saddle. But it's the technology that we think is going to be the today technology and the future technology, because the kind of iteration that you have with a traditional industrial method is actually slashing throughout or even less in terms of how many iterations you can do in the same amount of time. And usually when I talk about the 3D padding, 3D printed padding saddle, it's something that amazes everyone, because usually with a standard saddle, you might have 10, 15 20 iterations during the development phase. With this technology, we were able to have almost 100 iterations in a couple of weeks. So basically, it's the amount of testing that you might have with this technology. It's impressive. You can collect every data, every pressure mapping, and then have the best possible padding for achieving the comfort.
Yeah, fantastic. In the saddle, you just showed adaptive technology, and we have later a little clip as well for that to show again how it is done. But this is a 3D printed saddle. So how can maybe people imagine that the process? Is it really done in a 3D printer? Maybe we know that you lay it in a box and then the 3D printer is working, or what's really the technology behind it?
It's a completely different technology. It's what we call the additive technology. It's not like layering up with the materials that you use for prototyping. So it's a technology that we have in collaboration with Carbon, which is a company based in the Silicon Valley in California. So they create the system of using some raisins, some lettuces that in their printer will produce any shape that you can design, basically. I won't go into the details because it's quite complex, explaining all the phases of the printer, of the printing. So basically, you have a printing machine where there's a UV light, bulb light inside it that project the shape of what you want to print on a mirror. Okay. And then, all the technology inside the printer will create, as you briefly see in the video before, in our case, the padding taking life outside the printer. And when you remove from the printer, then for sure you have a couple of more steps, like the curing, for example, that make sure that the mechanical parameters of the print will maintain the same for the whole duration of the saddle, and then you can just glue on your shell and be ready to ride.
Very good. We have a short clip, and we want to maybe show this, that maybe people can understand a bit better what we're talking about. So if you don't mind, play the clip for the saddle. I have a friend who's really excited about the saddle, and it's very interesting for me when I touched it. Obviously, the density of the saddle was in different areas. You can achieve different density, and it was really interesting. And he said, "Listen, that's the best saddle he had ever ridden, and it solved all his saddle issues. And he's riding a lot, so it was really, really interesting. We have some really good feedback." And do a lot of the pro riders using that saddle?
There are a few of them. That are using the saddle. They solve many issues because, as you mentioned, theoretically you can have every cell of the saddle with different parameters, and each parameter could be designed for your own pressure mapping. We decided to divide the saddle into 3 different zones according to the riding positions of the rider. So whenever the rider has their hands on the top of the handlebar, on the hood, or on the below position of drop bars, then your position on the saddle is actually changing a little bit. So even your part of your body touching the saddles are different. So that's why you need different support. So with this technology, not only you are able to divide the saddle in different zones, but also vertically you can have a progressive parameters. It means that whatever your body weight is, then the saddle adapts to your body weight, and then you have body weight distribution, more stability, and actually the peak pressure is about 60% less than compared to a traditional saddle. And 60% is not the marketing numbers that you always have from the bike industry. It's actually something that we measure, and it's the average peak pressure reduction, because there are some riders that even reach 70 or 80% less compared to a traditional saddle. So that's amazing of what you can achieve with the technology.
Are you planning to use the same technology in other areas as well? Let's say with the shoes, or can you see it in bar tape, or can you see anything where you can use this in the future?
Well, I think that we are just at the beginning of using the technology. For sure, it's still quite expensive compared to a traditional industrial method. I think, as every technology out there, at the beginning should be, a little bit more expensive than, what is traditional. But in the future, if we can achieve, wider volume, then I think that, you can use the technology in other segments of the product line.
Okay, very good. Maybe Will, are you ready to go? Very good. Yeah, very cool. I mean, honestly, at the beginning, when I saw it and I saw the first pictures of the saddle, I wasn't sure if it's really something which would work. I thought it was a bit of it's a cool looking saddle, but I wasn't sure. But then when I had the first time the saddle in my hand and I was dealing with it and pushing it, and I thought, this is really something special. And I could see obviously the ventilation. I could see obviously that you can modify it, you can make different things happening. And it felt really durable. It felt really valuable. So I think you did a really good job there. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that at the beginning we released the saddle only in the full carbon version. So
Yes.
sure that's more expensive than any other saddle. But then eventually through the year we also expand the range of saddle with the technology to make sure that could be also achievable with a lower price. Still more expensive than a traditional saddle, but more availability even for different requests.
Very good. 2019 was an amazing year for you. You won all the 3 Grand Tours. So for a saddle brand, I think that's quite something special. And again, with different riders. So from Egan Bernal, you had Primož Roglič, you winning race Richard Carapaz. So all of them riding your saddle, and I think obviously spending 3,500-4,000 kilometers in a saddle. How is it to work with the pro teams? How much feedback are you getting from them? How much is really influencing? Is there maybe one rider standing out who is really active and really giving you a lot of feedback? And what did you learn in the past years from these guys?
Well, usually the pro cyclists are more available, I would say, during the training camp. So for us, for every partners of the World Tour teams, the training camps are more important because you have the ability and the chance to spend more time with them, talking a little bit more, because during the season, when they are keep on traveling to training camp, to races, it's more difficult to get in touch with them. But the training camps is the moment of the year where you collect all the feedback from the year. You work with them, with the bike fitters, and to check what's can be achievable in the product line to make sure that they have the right products for their performance. So you always learn a lot from them. For sure, each rider is different, different requests. There are riders that I would say that are more sensible, and they can give you more detailed feedback, both on shoes and on saddles. There are other riders that are less sensible, so they are okay with any products that you have. And actually, it's the same in the real world. Even out there, if you talk to dealers, for example,
Yes.
where customers that are more picky in terms of choosing saddle, they're keeping on having some issues. So those are the riders that need to talk more to get the points where you need to make modification to the products and have the next generation of the best in line products.
Very good. If we have now a customer out there and he said, I'm interested in a saddle, what do you think is the best way forward to find the best saddle in the Fizik range? What do you think is the best way forward? So
I think a little bit more than a year ago on our website, we actually create a page which is called the Saddle Finder. So it's quite easy. The consumer, the potential customer in this case, can ask a few questions, and then they have free results according to the bike that they are using, because it's very important to understand as a starting point which bike the consumer is using, because the geometry of the bike is actually give more influence on the riding position to the rider. I remember many years ago, one of my first bike fitting, I was told, okay, you got your saddle, just use on every bike that you have. But now we know that's completely wrong, because the geometry of the bike influences how you are sitting on the saddle. So basically, the same saddle on different bike will get you different results. A couple of years ago, we launched our Argo platform, which is our short nose saddle. Actually, for that saddle, we have 3 different versions of that saddle. One for more air position, one more for endurance position, even one for gravel rides. We know that geometry, the intended use of the bicycle, will change your need of saddle. So that's for sure, it's the main starting point. And for sure, even if you are, an experienced rider or a beginner rider, then you will have to choose differently, because, if you are a beginner, usually you might have more issue in adapting to a saddle, but if you are more experienced, then you already know what could work for you.
So you think really it's the position of the person on the bike, and if you go more in an aero position and you rotate your pelvis a bit further forward, or you sit a bit more upright, obviously the position of your pelvis on the saddle is changing, and so you adapt then the padding, or what changes are you making with the saddle, and how can people know which saddle is for which purpose? Do you have a certain descriptive terms on the saddles?
Yeah, I have an example here. I was mentioned before the Argo platform. So this is what we call the Vento Argo. So part of the Vento series. Vento for Fizik is for all the products that we made for racing, basically.
Okay.
Why we think that this saddle works better for air position? If you see here, the nose is just like a drop-down shape. So we'll have more support whenever the rider is in a more aero position. So if you are an aero bike, a more aggressive geometry, then I will definitely suggest this saddle. Also, the padding is different because it's more stiffer, more responsive. So you need, something more that support your, whenever you are more engaged in power transfer. Also, the thickness of the padding is actually different from an endurance saddle compared to a racing saddle. So those are all the stuff that you need to look at the specification of the saddle, which is the one. But as I mentioned, it all starts from your bicycle and your position on the bicycle, because start and reach will influence more your pressure dynamic than the everything coming from the bike.
Very good. You work very closely with Phil Bird, who was the head of physiotherapy for Team Sky many years back. So I had the pleasure to meet him as well and speak to him about the saddle. So working with the bike fit, I think that's really a good idea to come to that ideal saddle. So and then when somebody sits a bit more upright, you would shift the padding a little bit further back so that he has a bit more support. And would you change the density of the padding?
Exactly. So basically, if you are more in a upright position, you are more seated on your ischial bones. So this area of the saddle is actually becoming more important. So that's why the formulation, the chemical formulation that we use for the saddle are actually a bit different from racing saddle. And for sure, also, I would say the width of the saddle will change a bit. When you are in a more position, you probably need a narrower saddle. Whenever you are in a more upright position, then you need more support on these bones. Then you need to get a little bit wider. Sometimes we receive requests for suggestions for the saddle. And first thing I ask, okay, you are in a more air position or a more upright position? Because even if your ischial bones distance is the same, it's a fixed number, then you might need to change whatever actually needs for you.
Very good. And then the saddles come with different rails. And that obviously as well determines a bit the price. Can you tell us a bit more about the rails? And I think you have completely integrated rail structures as well in carbon saddles. So maybe just to talk people a bit through the range, that they understand how to find a good saddle for them and as well matching their price point.
So for those who are not familiar with the Fizik saddle range, it's actually divided into different levels. The 00 level, which is the full carbon version. For example, well, I have here the saddle. Full carbon means that you have carbon rails, carbon shell. And for the 00, usually we have a full loop design here, which is patented by Seller Royal Group. So it's something that we actually invented, created. And this system is actually working well because it will increase the stiffness, the structure stiffness of the shell, as actually is helping distributing the weight better all along the structure of the saddle. So that's for mostly for our full carbon version, for carbon saddles. Then we have the R1 or the X1. R and X stands for road or off-road version.
Okay.
So the R stands for road, and the R1 is you have still the carbon rail, but the shell is not full carbon, but it's carbon reinforced. So we are going into the plastic world, in the nylon world. And then for the R3 level or the R5 level, then also changing the rail option, not more carbon, but it's more metal. It's what we call chromium or SLR, which is manganese for the R5 level. So that's also create price ladder for saddles.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel, obviously we have a significant weight saving when we go from alloy or metal rails to carbon, but is it as well a difference in stability and maybe vibration damping? Can you see changes there?
If you are changing from the carbon rail version to the metal version, alloy version, there's a little change also in the perceived stiffness of the whole structure, but it's very, very difficult. You have to be very, very sensible, I would say, to feel it. Usually, the carbon rail version is chosen by those that wants to save a few grams.
Yes.
That makes sense, especially for lighter bike. If you're a climber, then you also need to save some grams. But in terms of the flexibility of the shell, is actually very, very similar.
Mm-hmm. And what was maybe the best-selling saddle you have produced so far? Is there one product which really stands out? Is it like something like an Antares or the Arione? Is that what is the best-selling product you have done in terms of saddles?
If we talk about the last year, the 3D printed saddle actually outscored every saddle in the market, and it was a really surprise for us.
Yes,
we actually didn't forecast such a big number of those saddles, but actually it means that there are a lot of people out there that are looking for a comfortable saddle. They are willing to spend a little bit more just to get the right comfort and solve any issue. I think if we talk historically, that we have the iconic saddles in the Fizik range, which are the Arione, Antares, Liante. Those probably are the most common saddle that we still have in our catalog. The Antares probably the more democratic of the saddle, sometimes also used not only by roadies, but also in cross country, for example. So that I would say that Antares probably is the shape that historically is selling the most.
Mm-hmm, very nice. Do you have one of the Antares saddles with you?
Actually, not here in the office with me.
Yes.
But, well, actually, this one is the Antares, but
yes,
it's the Cibo version, so it's not solid, but it's with a channel. So that's actually based on the Antares shape.
Okay. How long did it take from the first idea of making an adaptive saddle? How long can we think about it? Is it 1 year, 2 years? How long does it take to come from an idea to a saddle, which is then in the hands of a dealer or on a bike from a rider?
Well, with the 3D printed technology, we did a very good job. And thanks to the technology, we were able to be in the market in less than 1 year. But because, as I mentioned before, the technology allows you to go from the idea to the final product without all the industrial phases that you usually have inside. So you have printed the padding, and then you can go right after in the lab or on the road and testing the saddle. So for us, for sure, we needed to get the knowledge of the technology before getting in the market. So we spent a lot of time learning the technology. But even in such a small amount of time, the number of the iteration that we did is actually higher and higher. Something that cannot achievable by the traditional industrial method. That's why we were able to get in the market very, very fast.
Okay.
So please go ahead.
Because you have to normally make a shape and you have to make a saddle. When you do traditional things, you create a mold and then you create a shape. But now you said when you're printing this and you can create it as you like and you can change it very quickly. I think this is really has changed obviously the industry with the whole 3D printing and making designs. We see this when they're building bikes and they make prototypes for aero bars or aero attachments and so on. So today really it's within no time. My brother has a company that's working with 3D printing. And it's quite amazing how quickly you can do things today, which before took weeks and weeks or months to create samples and a mold and everything like this. So this is really amazing and fantastic with the saddle. So that's really good to hear. Yeah, fantastic. And it's very durable. I was surprised when touching the surface. I was a bit afraid to break it, but it's really, really solid. And we have tested the saddles and they're really, really fantastic.
Yeah, we actually did a lot of internal tests because we have what we call the climatic chamber, where you put the padding, the saddles inside this chamber for actually 12 days, and during those 12 days you can test every climatic that you have. So from temperature coming from below 20 to up to 60 degrees, changing of humidity rate. So you can also get the UV aging, so you can test the saddle, this chamber, where you can simulate the exposure to the sun for many, many days. And actually the mechanical properties of the padding is not changing. So we will be surprised because probably it's going to be the most durable saddle out there with this technology.
Fantastic. Yeah, well done. Well done. Obviously, you ventured into a new chapter and you're making shoes since a couple of years. And we have a little clip as well showing shoe manufacturing. And maybe, Will, if you don't mind, maybe play the clip, because I think it's fascinating how shoes are made. And I'm always surprised that companies can do this and make the left and the right the same size. And you have new technologies with the Vento, Stabilito. So I think there's a lot of things which are really, really cool. And yeah, I'm sure we will talk all about it once we've seen the clip.
How to turn each pedal stroke into speed.
Very cool. Yeah, I think in the video we saw that top of the range model where you worked a lot as well on the arch support and ventilation, which I think is very important for us. Can you tell us a bit more about the shoe, the Vento?
Yeah, this is the what we call the Vento Stabilita. Vento because it's part of the Vento series, so part of the racing products that we have. Stabilita is what we call the dynamic arch support that we created and we patented for the shoe. So at the start of the conversation, we talk about how we work with the pro team, with the riders. That's something that we try to understand whenever we are at training camps. We always saw bike fitters working not only on the saddle position, but also working on what happens inside the shoe.
Yes.
And we know that most of the professional athletes have custom insoles. So we try to understand what could be done better in that part of the shoe. Because working and talking with bike fitter, they always told us, yes, they have the custom insoles, but sometimes you don't have the right amount of support from the shoe. So it will be better if you can achieve something that could support the arch support, the arc of their feet. Because supporting the arch of the feet, it means that you stiffen the foot that you have inside the shoe. And you know that whenever you increase the stiffness of the whole system, actually the power transfer is actually more efficient. So that's why it's important to maintain and create the right amount of support. So with our designers, with engineers, and for sure this is part of the concept program in Fizik, so part of the cross-disciplinary program that we have. We work together with Dr. Physio to understand how could be possible to achieve that function. So we try to play a little bit with the system, and eventually we decided to remove part of the outsole, create this system where you can envelop your arc basically on the bottom of the foot. And that's what we call the dynamic arc support. It's beautiful. We are very proud of the shoe. It can work with any anatomy of your foot that you have, because here you have the boa dials that adjusted the amount of pressure that you want to have on your arch.
Yeah.
And then for sure we also have the other boa for the volume control for the mid-step. So it's very light shoe, very ventilated, because removing part of the outsole will increase the temperature management.
Yes.
But also removing part of the sole doesn't mean that the stiffness of the sole is decreased. We were able to maintain the stiff top of the line stiffness as you have on the traditional Infinito, for example. So for Fizik, the scale of the index is from 10 to 1. There's no, I would say, general indexing of the outsole. So any brands you will see that they're using different soles, different scale. For us, for Fizik, the number 10 is the best. And also for the shoe, even with that part of the shoe removed, it's one of the most stiff.
Yes, I liked as well when you show maybe the front of the shoe again. There's a very nice air intake from the front, where you can see the air can stream in from the sole. Yeah, I thought it was nice for us because obviously Dubai, we're riding a lot in the summer. It's really hot, and then I think a bit of cooling air. And I thought interesting was as well the insole. When I took the insole out of the shoe, that it was kind of a flexible material, and you could really see where the tightening of the boa was really lifting the shoe up, and then from the inside to support the arch.
Visible, but you have some streamline here, very flexible. So
yes.
Whenever you are, closing your boa, your dials, is actually this part will flex a little bit and will, create the enveloping feeling that you have on your arm. So it's
yes.
very comfortable shoes.
Very good. Something about the upper material. What are you using as the main material for the shoe? That felt a little different. It felt a little bit rougher. It was really comfortable, but what are you using there? It's not a leather.
No, it's not leather. It's a laminated mesh. So basically, it's a more breathable material compared to Microtex or leather. So it's important because thanks to this material, you have a lighter shoe in general, but also more breathable. So especially if you are in Dubai with such a high temperature, this kind of material composition will increase the temperature management that you might need.
Very good.
Also, we actually, I think for the Dubai customers, we actually have another shoe is actually even more ventilated that could be also interesting.
Yes.
That has been innovative also in our range. It's what it's called the R-Whip. I have here with me. Not sure if you already see this one. Was launched about a year ago. So if you need the best ventilation as possible, you can see here.
Yeah, you can see through.
You can see through. You can see through. So it's very light. It's actually the shoe that I'm using the most, especially also here in Italy, in north of Italy in the summer. Could be quite hot, quite humid. It's a shoe that it's about less than 200 grams. You have the power strap that will envelop your feet very well. So even if you need some support in your heart, this could be a very nice solution. It's breathable because what we use here is a net-like construction, I would say. So that's why you can see through the shoe. It's very tenacious, it's very durable, but also the most breathable material that we have in our range so far.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, we've seen it in the store. It's really nice and really ventilated. I like as well the range of adjustment you have on the cleats, on the sole, that you get a long range there. That there's a lot of options, obviously, to go rather further a little bit back. And I see as well the ventilation on the front again, where there's a real big air intake to cool the feet. And is this the shoe you're using for triathlon as well, or you have a specific shoe you're using for triathlon for yourself, or is this your tri shoe?
This one is the shoe that I use for training and
Okay.
for normal road racing. For triathlon, for sure, I prefer a specific shoe with a, a big strap out there, because whenever you need a faster transition, then you need a specific triathlon shoe. So that's why I'm not using this one for racing, but for usual road race and training on the road, that is just perfect. Also, as you mentioned before, the cleat position, it's something that also we studied with biomechanics, because unless other shoe manufacturing, I would say, we recessed a little bit the cleat position, because more modern biomechanics studies ask us to recess a little bit the position of the cleat, because the bike geometries are changing year by year a little bit. They are more aggressive. They put the rider in a different position. So that's why you need to recess the position of the cleats a little bit more. Not only for achieving the best possible position on the bike, but also to prevent injury, because recessing the position of the cleats will decompress the pressure that you have on your knees. So that's why it's also healthier. Changing and getting back on the position on the cleats.
Yeah, very good. We studied this a lot. We're working with a company from Germany called Gebiomeist, where they do the saddle pressure and foot pressure mapping inside the sole. And we saw a lot of things when we're moving with the cleats, and we saw the right shape of the shoes and so on, and the stiffer soles and so on. It was very interesting to study this for us to understand shoes and what happens, as you said, what happens inside your shoe when you're pedaling. There was something quite interesting. You have as well different soles for different shoes. How would you describe the different models, and what can people expect when they're going through the shoe? What are the differences? You're using unidirectional carbon fiber for the sole of the shoe?
Yeah, for the top of the line shoes, well, for example, like this one, it's a full carbon unidirectional carbon sole, and that's the sole that we use for our racing top of the line shoe. Then in our range, we offer different construction and different stiffness index, I would say, because not everyone needs a very stiff outsole. Sometimes you prefer to have a little bit more comfort inside your shoe. Then we have what we call the R4 shoe, which is on our overcure, on our tempo overcure shoe. It's a carbon injected sole. It's a little bit more flexible, but it's a nice compromise between performance and comfort, I would say. Is the stiffness index 7, for example.
Okay.
And if you go down on price, then you also go a different material, more nylon, less carbon, a little bit more flexible, a little bit more comfortable, I would say, because you might expect that riders need different feeling during their rides. So we try to complement with our range all the choice that you might have in the shop.
Very good. So what's the best way you think for riders to go? Is it again something where you can give them some guidance to find the right shoe? What's the best way forward? And do you offer as well shoes with a wider shape and a narrow shape?
Yeah. For the Tempo Overcure R4, since last year, we also offer a wide fit.
Okay.
And to help the consumers to choose which fit to choose, we have a guide in our website. So if you go to our website, there's a sizing guide, and where you can select, you can actually print the guide, make your measurement, and then according to the system, we suggest if you should go to a wide fit or a regular fit.
And is the sole wider on the wider shoe? Is it just a bit more volume? Or how much wider is from a, let's say, a 42 shoe size, and I go from a regular to a wide? How much difference would this approximately be?
Yeah, so we actually did a specific wide sole, sorry.
Yes.
So it's not only the last, so the shape of the shoe is actually bigger, so more upper to increase the volume. We wanted to provide to the wider fit users the same features, the same functionality, the same feeling as the regular fit. So that's why having a specific outsole was very important. In terms of how wide it is, it's actually 6-7 millimeters wider, but it's not only the width of the shoe that is changing, it's actually the volume in the forefront of the shoe. So we are talking about the perimeter about 13-12 millimeter more, so it's quite a lot.
Very good. No, I tested them and they feel really nice. And I think the best thing is really, they look really cool. You had some really cool colors as well. I don't know if you have some samples of the colors we can show, because I think some of them are really outstanding. And obviously Italian style, you did some really, really cool looking shoes.
Yeah, if you look at the website, you can see all the colors that we have. Especially for that shoe, we made some iridescent color, which is very, very nice. What we call the copper and the beetle color, which is something that is very requested. Constantly sold out on our website these days. So it's something that, right price point, right features, right colors make the product go away very fast.
Yeah, very nice. We spoke before about the pro teams and the pro riders. Are you working with them very closely? Do you have any cool stories from people when they gave you good feedback, and how much do you learn from them when you work with the pro teams, and maybe about shoes? Is there anybody really interesting things you can share with us?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool stories. Something I cannot say, unfortunately, because there are some NDAs, I would say, between us and them. Something nice that we usually do when they have some issues, for example, on saddles. We are able, since our factory is below our offices, just make a small adjustment on the foam, just to make sure that they have the padding that they want, the stiffness that they want. So sometimes the saddle used by some pro riders are slightly different from what you usually have on the market in the shop, because we needed to have them with the best possible solution. Sometimes a custom solution for them is what they ask for. So
yeah, very nice. I saw again that the video was really cool when Sergio Garcia was going to the factory, and I think you took him really to the full process of making the saddle, and again he was amazed, and I don't know how many times you mentioned this during the video, that he was really fascinated about all the people working, and that it's all about handwork. And I think this is maybe for most people really sometimes difficult to comprehend how much handwork it really goes into a saddle, goes into a pair of shoes, that it's really people stitching the leather. I was surprised that somebody really put the leather on the saddle, and there was one lady, there was no machine. She was just kind of aiming over the saddle and aligning everything, and then pulling it down and then gluing it again, and so on. So it is really quite humbling to see it, and I think you get a completely different appreciation of the product itself when you do it. Have you worked in the factory? Have you worked with the ladies and men doing it?
I tried. I remember when I joined the company, I spent a few days working in the factory, testing all the old phases of the saddle manufacturing. And believe me, it's so difficult. I tried to place the cover on the saddle. I never get it right. Never. It's possible. I don't know how they made it. It's very complicated. It seems a very simple task, but you need a lot of attention, a lot of eye, because it's very difficult to be as precise as possible. And then also our quality control is incredible, because sometimes they decide not to sell saddle that honestly speaking, even if I'm in product, sometimes I don't see any difference between one another because they are so attentive, quality is so high, the request for the product quality is so high. So you have to be an experienced um, uh, inside of manufacturing, otherwise, it's incredible. Believe
Yeah,
me.
very good, very good. I was fascinated to see that. And the last piece, obviously, on the puzzle is you have now the saddle to make people more comfortable. You have the shoes connecting the bike, and then there's bar tape, which is another category. Can you tell us a bit more about the tapes you're offering?
Yeah, even for the tapes, we offer a lot of different construction. There are, in terms of what you want as a thickness of the bar tape, I would say.
Yeah.
The range is between 2 millimeter to 3 millimeter. The 3 millimeter is more cushioning with EVA, sometimes for more gravel off-road users who benefit from having more cushioning on the handlebar. Or if they are going to the Paris-Roubaix or on the Flanders, when you have a cobblestone,
Yes.
for gripness. So we have also bar tape for that users. But also in terms of the touch of the bar tapes, also we offer different solutions, more classical, more soft, more tacky. The alternatives and solution, the mix of a construction is quite high. Also, we have a lot of attention on colors. Recently, for example, we introduced a bar tape matching with the adaptive saddle with the green one. So you can match the green saddle with the bar tape in the saddle. Also, we have a new scale of gray colors, which is something very cool because recently many frame manufacturers are selling bikes on very different grayscale. So we also have solution for matching tapes with the bicycle. So really the selection is so wide that we are also very proud of that segment of the category.
Very nice. And maybe, obviously, we were all affected by COVID in the last couple of months. How is it for you? How is the situation? When somebody orders a saddle now, and is it easy for you at the moment to supply, or you have a lot of backlog? So if somebody wants an adaptive saddle, how long will it usually take until we can expect the saddle to be in the store?
Well, if we're talking about aftermarket sales, I think we are quite good in terms of lead times. Don't think that you can expect more than a couple of months if something is not in stock.
Yes.
It's a little bit different in terms of OEM suppliers because the bike manufacturing, bike selling is booming this past year. So every bike manufacturer are increasing the request of components, not talking only about saddles, but wheels, components, handlebars, stems, anything going on the bicycle. So even for us that we control our production because the production is our own production.
Yes.
That helps us a lot because we are flexible to changing from kind of construction to another construction to comply with the request of the customer. But even if we own our factories for OEM, I think the lead time is still quite high at the moment. Probably almost, well, I would say more than 6 months, but more closer to 9-10 months at the moment.
Okay.
We receive a lot more attention, even from customers that usually not buy from us, but we are the ones that are able to be more flexible and giving more availability to our consumers, to our customers. So we are happy to do that. But I think that for this year, next year, it's going to be for the whole industry. I'm not talking about saddles.
Very busy.
Complicated, very, very busy for everyone here.
And did you increase? How many people did work with Fizik before, and how many people did you increase the staff? How many people are working in the factory and in the whole office in Fizik?
If we talk about the people in the manufacturing in Italy, I think there are about 300 people, and probably the same in our own factory in Asia. So there are about 600 people, even a little bit more. For sure, we are expanding. We are investing in more production line to meet the requirement of the customers. We start moving and orders new machineries since last summer, so we expect to be able to increase our capacity very, very soon. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Hey, Alex, I'm conscious of your time, and I want to just acknowledge Fizik as a company. I think really you make some super nice and stylish products. I think you make cyclists look better. I think really the effort you put into bar tapes, into saddles, into shoes really shows, and I think that's as well one of the slogans that you want to make cyclists' life a little bit easier. And I can really say you have been really successful with this, and we really like to be your partner for the GCC region for all these products. So thank you very much for this, and thanks for your time. And I have to say thanks again for our next guest, which I'm really excited about, and thanks to your team to arranging this, that we're speaking to the Tour de France champion, Olympic gold medalist, Geraint Thomas. So I'm really excited to speak to G about his career and about using Fizik products and so on. So I'm really excited, and thanks again that you arranged for us to have him as our guest on our show.
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure being your guest today.
Thank you very much. Regards to Italy, and I hope we see us soon in Dubai. Once we can, then we can show you how we ride in Dubai and the cycle track and everything. So I'm looking forward to see you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Alex. Ciao. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And next week, and in 2 weeks, we have Geraint Thomas. So looking forward to speak to him about the tour and about the Olympic gold medals and everything else around it. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye-bye.